Well, if you guys watched our roasting AI video, you'd know we accidentally stumbled across Montech. We weren't actually scheduled to come here, but here we are. So we're going to talk about two cases that we're specifically interested in at their booth. One is a case coming out later this year, in December-ish, and one is a prototype that they desperately want your feedback on. I have some opinions. I think you guys obviously have opinions. Yes, you guys have opinions. You know you have opinions. And if you don't think you have an opinion, then you're wrong. But anyway, moving on, we'll go and talk about the stuff that they're showing here. And yeah, we'll get your feedback because brands that listen to the customers are the ones that are going to survive the next couple years.
Computex 2026 coverage is proudly sponsored by Fantex, with support from Asus ROG, NZXT, Haven, and Cooler Master helping us bring you wall-to-wall coverage direct from Taipei.
Okay, so again, these are two prototypes. This is the F738. We have the Pro and we have the Vision. We'll start with the Pro. So you'll notice here, this case is kind of got a floating kind of an aspect to it here. So you can see that the upper chamber is separate from the lower chamber. So down here is the power supply. You'll see there's a screen on here, and this is where we're gonna be asking your guys' opinion in a moment. But I kind of want to show you some neat features here. Pretty standard case, but it's just split, right? So if you look at the front right here though, you'll notice we've got these slats that kind of open and close. It does come included with, at least the prototype, and what they're envisioning, comes included with dual 170 millimeter fans in the front and a single 140 millimeter exhaust fan in the back, so giving plenty of flow. You can see you have your fan filter directly behind this. This front does pop off, I believe, but it's a prototype. I don't want to go messing with it. But you'll notice there's a little lever under here that allows me to open and close the front slats. So this is kind of giving the user sort of a choice here, like do you want to perhaps, because there are no motherboard fans, at least on the Pro over here. So I just want to show the back right here is solid. So on this particular version of the case, you'll notice there's a couple different ones here. Opening up the front slat is kind of a mandatory, but you could also, say for instance, close it off a little bit, kind of customize the airflow for maybe a little bit less dust, a little bit less noise potentially. The effectiveness of closing a grill like this to reduce noise is debatable at times. But if you look at the top here, you can see we actually have square mesh. It's not round. And it does cover most of the entire top. It covers where the entire fan grill itself or the fans would be. So you can have exhaust on the top or intake on the top as well. If you wanted, I guess you could go downdraft intake on the top and close the front and then just have a solid front like that. So it's interesting because of the fact that it's not something you've seen people really try in a long time. It's not the first time this has been tried, but it is the most recent time we've seen anyone try it. And then obviously they have a black version right here. Now, if we look at the Vision, the only difference here essentially is that it's glass on the front. But like we talked about, if you close off the front, which this is now permanently closed off, you need some additional intake. So the backside of this case, if you look here, you can see this is mesh basically the entire rear, and they have some intake fans right here on the side. So it kind of solves that issue of, like I said, if you close the front, then you have to have obviously additional intake somewhere. Now you do have the middle portion as well, as you can see right here. So if you were running the Pro and you wanted to close this off, you could run mid-plate fans that are pulling in from this middle floating section, and then that's not going to be an issue. But that would be your only option there, where here you can have intakes on the side and on the bottom, and exhaust on the top and exhaust in the rear, or all intake everywhere except the rear. A lot of different ways you can do it. But I want to talk about the screen. So here's an example of the screen on, as you guys can see. And one of the questions that was posed to me by Montech is like, they're not sure, should we include a screen with the case? Oh, and before we get there, you guys see this big Montech thing right here. A lot of customers are very vocal on, we don't like branding. That actually is removable. That's this guy right here. The whole reason that's there is to protect the compartments in shipping. It gives some rigidity and a physical connection between the two chassis, the top of the chassis and the lower part of the chassis. And they don't want this to just be wasted materials. So you could reinstall it if you want. You can keep it in there. You could maybe peel off this plastic, make your own plaque or something. Or this flips up, so you could use it like a phone stand or something like that. You can sideways or whatever. It's just something that they were like, well, you know what? If we add this, maybe it has use and not turn into waste. More waste, especially since it is plastic. Or you can just leave it in there like you want. But back to the topic at hand, which is the screen. Screens right now are expensive. They're expensive because they're falling under the same price constraints and issues as anything that uses electronics right now because of the DRAM and storage shortages. Because they all come out of the same fabs, like the components that are necessary for making it work. So of course the crunch is being, or the squeeze is being felt everywhere. So I asked him, I said, well, how much more would the case be with the screen? He said, well, it'd probably be about $20 more. I said, they would pay it. I said, if you offered a screen version and a non-screen version for $20 more, I believe people would get this screen for $20. It's a decent sized screen. It's approximately 6 inches. And the question he says, yeah, but with so many people running AIOs with screens on them now, would they do a dual screen? I said, no, I think what people would do is instead of paying the $100 more plus it costs to get a screen on your AIO, people would get a cheaper AIO and then buy a case that has a screen on it for $20 more. That's the more like economical choice and decision to make on that. I think you guys agree with that. I'm curious, sound off in the comments below how you guys feel about that. But in terms of pricing, right? Because that's where you guys are like, well, that depends. Is it 200 and 220? That's a whole different story, right? Because 200 is already at, that'd be the very upper level of people's budgets. Right now we're looking at this version right here, the Vision without the screen at $99. That's like the new baseline for so many cases. A lot of cases are cheaper than that, obviously. The Pro would actually cost about $109, so about $10 more, because obviously there's a lot more mechanism happening here that has cost with it as well. With the screen, they're looking at like maybe 125 or so, 120, 125, so 20, 25 bucks. That's where you guys need to sound off. Would you pay the extra money for that? So that's where I think people would spend less money on the AIO without a screen and a tiny bit more money on a case that has a screen. It makes no sense to spend, $200 plus on an AIO that has a small screen on it and then spend, less on your case because you bumped into your budget and then not get the case that has a screen when this is a 6-inch screen for only $20, $25 more. I think economically that makes way more sense. You guys sound off in the comments below if you think that's true. But they also have an update to the King 95, which is like their most popular case they've ever produced. Let's look at that. So this is the King 95 3D. The major difference here is the fact that they now have the glass on the top. We have 2 exhaust fans in the rear, and you'll notice this vertically mounted AIO, which I think is kind of interesting, and that allows them to be able to do the glass on the top, not have to compromise on, compatibility and cooling. You can still fit a 360 AIO up here, no problem. The way they have these configured is these two are exhaust fans, the 3 on the AIO are exhaust fan, the 3 on the bottom and the 2 on the rear are actually intake. So it's forcing all of the air to anything not needed from the AIO, what the AIO kind of rejects because it can't flow it through there based on its fan speed, is going to be exhausted through the rear right there. And if you look on the back of the case, you can see the rear is just a giant flow-through mesh. It looks really nice. I think the curved glass, now it's not a single piece. Doing a single piece of curved glass exponentially makes the cost go up. But the seam on here is not too intrusive, but you have obviously the curved glass here, the straight glass there, and then the top glass, which is why they call it the 3D. They're thinking it is like a 3D glass. But you've got this really nice edge lighting along the top right here, which curves and comes all the way down and all the way around the bottom. But the price on this is 120 bucks. So yeah, it's very competitive right now amongst the case manufacturers. There's a lot of cases on the market, so obviously everyone's trying to really compete. And that's why I think consumers are winning in that particular category right now, because of the fact that the quality is staying up, but the price is exponentially coming down for features that used to drive the price way up. I think it's because manufacturing is finding a way to make it cheaper, but keep the quality the same, which is kind of what happens. That's just manufacturing maturity. Now, one thing I want to mention here is you've got this vertical mounted AIO. If you're not running an AIO, let's say you're running like the NX600, or which I still think is one of the absolute most like bang for the buck coolers. We use the NX600 in so many different things. If you're not running an AIO, it's like, well, Jay, does that mean the fans would be more recessed and it will look odd? No, it actually comes with a bracket to space the fans out about 30 millimeters to make up for the thickness of the radiator, so the fans stay on the appropriate plane so they're not all different depth and looking all weird. So I love to see so much of these little things thought of in a brand that has been notoriously known for like super budget price points, coming out with what feels like a truly premium product, but maintaining that affordability. Anyway, there you go, guys. That's the 2 things we're looking at here at Montech and Computex 2026. As always, make sure you're subbed so you don't miss our coverage, and we'll see you in the next one.